Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 208th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. Today in the KMF Collective Studio, I have with me CrossFit reporter, coach, and marketer, Niki Brazier. How are you doing, Niki?
Hey, I'm so good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Of course.
So, Niki, just to kind of get to know you a little bit, get some background on you, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
So I grew up in New England. I feel like I'm the only CrossFit person who's not from Southern California. I grew up just outside of Boston, and I think probably a lot of people might argue this, but athletics in my childhood took the shape of dance, which is totally a sport. So if anyone says it's not, I have a complete bone to pick with them.
Yeah.
But I was actually in the Boston Ballet for 11 years growing up. I danced all day, every day in between classes, all that fun stuff, and all through college and taught dance to kids. And it was a huge, huge part of my life. So that's sort of what I trained for and what kept me in shape and what made me feel competitive growing up. I also played sports with my dad and my brother. So both of them were really, really into soccer. My dad played for a semi-pro league that was called the Over the Hill League, a bunch of dudes in their 40s and 50s and 60s playing soccer. And my brother played with them, so I played with them as well. And three of us played volleyball growing up too. I actually ended up playing college volleyball a little bit, but for a D3 school, so it's not really something to hang my hat on.
Yeah. And that's awesome. So you got it's really involved in athletics at an early age. One, being shaped by, influenced by your dad and your brother, but then two, forging your own path, going down the route of dance, which clearly took up so much of your time, from a young age all the way, like you said, through college. And so, volleyball and soccer and, track, those are kind of typical sports that you get into at a young age. And dance too, dance and gymnastics, you can kind of, set a good foundation and a good basis, for your athletic life. So for you, Niki, when you first started dance, what was it about the sport that really caught your attention, made you want to go all in and see how far you could take that career?
Man, I don't know. I started with classical ballet and I loved the structure of it. It's so on both ends of the spectrum, right? Because there's so much structure and discipline and strength and inner virtue that you need to get good at it and to perform it at its best. And then on the other side, it's so incredibly moving and beautiful and magical and spiritual and all of those things that are associated with classical music and these, grandiose ballrooms and things like that. So it's so on both sides of the spectrum that I feel like it allowed me to tap into every single part of my own being, from being competitive and being strong and wanting to work on really technical things to getting to be creative and emotional and emotive and on all that stuff. So it was just a really great outlet for me growing up for everything that I liked and wanted to participate in. And that in and of itself was a really big driver in trying to see how far I could get in it. And then I could only get so far just because I'm not built like a traditional ballet dancer. And so I ended up pursuing other avenues of dance as well. Was on a traveling hip hop team, competed for a while in that respect, and took it into college where modern sort of exploded. And around the time that So You Think You Can Dance became huge, it gave other opportunities moving forward. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. You went from classical ballet and then kind of keeping up with the trends and going down a path that was more suited for, like you said, your athletic type and what you were built for, and then figuring out joining a traveling hip hop team. You don't hear that every day, that someone just joins a hip hop team.
Yeah, I think if you can move, you can move. You know what I mean? If you have rhythm and there's enough body awareness and spatial awareness and enough of a technical background, then you can basically fall into any kind of dance move. Not to say if you can't move that something wrong with you. But
Right.
I don't understand it. Like when people can't dance, I'm like, but why do you move like that? I don't get it.
Oh man. And so Niki, when you discovered, I mean, that traveling hip hop team, how did that kind of come into your sights, and then, like you said, set you up going into college for that next phase of your athletic journey?
Yeah, I was still a kid when I left the ballet and sort of started exploring other avenues of dance. And so when I took that into college, I ended up starting out the dance company that was sort of had fallen by the wayside at my school. So I went to Emerson, where there's like a huge theater, musicals, dance culture. And there was a school dance company that had fallen by the wayside. So I ended up restarting that with a group of friends and becoming the president my senior year. So it allowed me to, I don't know, like take everything I had learned from all aspects of dance and build an organization that was open to a lot of different people and a lot of different aspects of what they wanted to practice and learn and teach and all that stuff. So like we had a huge tap program. I'd never tapped in my life. You know what I mean? We had ballet and hip hop and things that I was used to. And then, like I said, modern was really coming up the wayside and becoming more popular. And so we were exploring that all together. It was just a neat way to take everything I'd learned as a kid and apply it in an area where people were starting to like make careers out of this. You know, they were starting to like figure out what they wanted to do with their lives in college. And some of them are still, some of the people I danced with in college are still dancing to this day. And I'm so incredibly proud of them, because that is just about as difficult as being like a full-time athlete or a professional CrossFit Games athlete. Like being a professional dancer is just as hard, and the challenges of finding work and staying fit and all that are, you know, the pressures are real. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's such a unique thing that you found and that you were able to build up at your school. I mean, diving all in and having this love and passion for dance. And so creating this program or this organization that allowed you to thrive in that. And so then, Niki, too, you said that you were able to continue on and play volleyball as well in college. So did this happen both at Emerson, the dance team, and playing volleyball?
Yeah, and that was a fun balance to try to figure out.
I
bet. Yeah, it was only for the first couple of years that I played volleyball, but yeah, it was a lot all at once, but so much fun. Oh my God, that feels like a million years ago. I'm so old.
No, you are not. Stop it.
Oh my God. It was fun. Good times.
Yeah. And I mean, I can imagine it was a really challenging balance with both dance and volleyball. So what made you decide? I mean, you clearly had this love and passion for dance and just sports in general, but what made you decide you wanted to continue on with your volleyball career too, at least for a few years at the collegiate level?
You know, given the opportunity, I walked onto the team my freshman year. So the opportunity was there, and I couldn't pass it up. I couldn't pass up the chance to learn more and play with those girls. And I was not great. You know, in high school, I was awesome. I thought I was awesome. I was like really tall and I could do all the things. And I was, you know, on varsity from my freshman year. And I thought I really had a chance. And then you get to college and you're like, oh shit, everyone is really good. Turns out like, oh, not as good as I thought I was. So I super sucked on the team. But stuck with it for a little while because I had learned so much and also like learned a lot as far as humility and understanding where I was in my space. But it made me hungry to learn more and to try harder, even though it was discouraging at times. So I think I stuck with it just because it was a really good lesson at the time. And looking back on it, I'm glad that I did it for a little bit. For sure.
Absolutely. And I think there's something unique about whether you play at the D1, D2, or D3 level with athletics. It's that discovering that balance and how challenging it really is to navigate academics, athletics, you join clubs, doing any manner of things that students do. It just really sets you up for success post-college because you've learned how to navigate that schedule.
Totally. Yeah.
So then, Niki, all that time, of course, you went to school not just for dance and for volleyball, but for academics too. So, and I know that you, this path that you're on now with broadcasting and being a reporter and in media and marketing, did you know that this was the path that you wanted to go down early on? So that kind of dictated what you majored in college, or were you very much still figuring that space out and just knowing you wanted to be involved with the sports world in some way?
Yeah, no, I actually knew. So I was a broadcast journalism major in college and a dance minor. But I knew going in that journalism was my I was all in on journalism. Like I wrote for my high school paper, and that was such an undertaking. We had I'll never forget, we had a 64-page color graduation issue. Like we had a school newspaper that rivaled like the Boston Herald at the time. It was insane.
Wow.
And it took up like all of my time and effort and energy in high school. So I knew that I was a journalism nerd. I was a news nerd, and I really wanted to go into it. I call this like my Miss America answer, which sounds so stupid, but I really wanted to make the world a better place by bringing the news to the people, which I still think is one of the most important jobs out there, which we're really doing a shit job of nowadays, but beside the point. Right. So I really wanted to do that forever. And when I got to college, I applied as a print journalism major, but ended up switching over into the broadcast program because I figured newspapers were dying, and if I entered broadcast, they'd teach me how to write, but they would also teach me how to do all the other multimedia things around journalism, photo, video, editing, all that, as opposed to going in for print, and they would only teach me to write. So I ended up switching and becoming a TV news reporter for many, many years. And early on in my career, I was an MMJ, a multimedia journalist, which means that I shot and edited all my own stories in addition to writing them and presenting them on the local TV news. So it was a hell of a job at the time. It was like minimum wage, so many hours, like such a hard, you wear every single hat. I burnt out really, really hard. But I did it for almost a decade. And at the time, I might have hated it. Nowadays, I'm really, really thankful because it taught me so many skills that I'm using now, especially, as the CrossFit season changes and I am in broadcast, but I'm also like shooting and editing a lot of video, and I'm putting myself in a lot of video. Like I learned all those skills when I was in news. So that early part of my career that I was super dedicated to is definitely paying off now in the end.
Absolutely. Sure. I mean, laying that basis. And like you said at the time, you couldn't possibly know all the foundational work that you were laying and how, it was so challenging, and I can't imagine that crazy schedule, but now it's really laid that groundwork for you and created this the successful future that you're in. And so, Niki, when you first then went into journalism, you knew that you wanted to make the world a better place, go into news. Was sports broadcasting then something on your horizon, or did you want to go another route initially, and then this kind of sports broadcasting ultimately ended up becoming the path that you started to walk?
Yeah, totally. I had no idea I wanted to be involved in sport, not even a little bit. Yeah. I took some like color and play-by-play classes in college, and I'm like abysmal at it. I haven't tried in a while, so maybe it'd be better now that I'm used to it. But no, I really wanted to do like hard news. I wanted to be like a political watchdog and like, all the stuff you see in like All the President's Men and those great movies from back in the day. No, I wanted to be embedded with the troops overseas. I wanted to tell the stories of what was really happening in areas of conflict and bring what I felt like was very important real life news to the masses. And like I said, it's really unfortunate to me the way that journalism has fallen from grace, so to speak. And I'm sad that it's not the revered and respected and whatever career that it used to be. Obviously, like today's media is, we don't even have enough time to talk about what's happening in today's media. But no, it wasn't always like that. There was definitely a golden era for news and journalism, and I wanted to be a part of that. So that I never really thought I would do sport, and then the opportunity just sort of presented itself, and it's spiraled from there into what I am so excited is like my favorite part of my career now, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then how, Niki, did that opportunity present itself? You said you were entrenched in doing media and being the journalist, the multimedia journalist for 10 years, and that was just your life for so long, getting burnt out on it. So when did this sports journalism opportunity or sports broadcasting come into play?
Yeah, totally. So, when I first got out of college, I took the first job that was offered to me because there were like not a lot of jobs for us in media. Yeah. And when you're in news, you take your first job in the middle of nowhere in a tiny little market where you learn all the ropes and you make your mistakes, and stakes are not super high because you're likely reporting on like the spaghetti supper fundraiser at the local church. That's like the big news story. So I moved up to Bangor, Maine. And I did a story on the local gym that was opening in downtown, which is totally a news story in small town Maine. And it was a CrossFit gym. And so my husband and I joined up. He was my boyfriend at the time, and we loved it. We fell in love. I started coaching. So we've been in it for maybe like 2 years, 2.5 years. And I had graduated from local TV news reporter to local TV news morning anchor.
Yeah.
It's a huge step in my career. And at the time, CrossFit was still relatively new. I think this was like maybe 2012. This was 2012. And on Facebook, CrossFit had made a post, and it was like, hey, do you know about broadcast media? And also, like, do you know how to snatch? Send us your reel. And I was like, I know both of those things. So a reel is, and I'm pretty sure they still have this, but it's like at the time it was like a DVD of your best work. It's like a super clip of like, I'm here, here's my face, here's me telling you news, here's me doing stuff. It's like all your best work in one video. So I remember this is how old I am. It was the first time I had ever uploaded my reel to YouTube. YouTube was like new.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I emailed my link in. I was like, hey, what's up? I'm Niki, and I like CrossFit, and I'm a TV news reporter. So like, what do you need? And Sean Woodland emailed me back and invited me to regionals. I think that was 2013 or 14, a million years ago. Wow. And that's it. Just literally like it spiraled from there. We added like 1 or 2 people to the media team every year since then, and grew it into the family that it's become over the last couple of years. And it's some of the most special and fun and memorable moments I've had in my journalism career have come out of CrossFit Games moments. So I'm really lucky that Sean chose me. He saw something in my YouTube link. Yeah. Sent me an email.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible to go from kind of being not necessarily plucked from obscurity, but doing these, these pieces and not really seeing, I guess, a full path, but then finding CrossFit, starting to coach, and then all of a sudden seeing a job opportunity present itself. And so it's being willing to, like you said, walk through those doors. Like when you first graduated college, being willing to move to a random place just for the possibility of a successful career later down the road. And so just trusting that and seeing where it would lead you, knowing that you love CrossFit, love journalism, so going down that path. And so
totally yeah. And I did both for a very, very long time. Because before, when CrossFit was just a couple weekends of regionals and then maybe you get asked to games, like it was not it's still not a full-time thing. I still have a full-time job, but even less so back then. It was just like a couple weekends a year I'd get hired for this freelance gig. And so I balanced a regular career in TV news for many, many years while still popping over to regionals when I could.
Wow. And so is it still, would you consider it still like freelance work? Are you like a contractor? You contract yourself out to do broadcasting, or is it more like now you have, are you still doing the TV news reporter full time and doing CrossFit and other kind of work?
Yeah, so I left TV news about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, and sort of made the step into marketing, which is something that a lot of people in news end up doing. It's communications, right? So if you can communicate with people, then you can open up a whole nother world of opportunity. So I burnt out on news and ended up going into marketing and putting those skills like video and editing and being on camera to other uses. And so I work full time for an ad agency, and I am still doing the work. I would consider it freelance. Yeah, I would consider myself a contractor still. I was never an employee of HQ. So when all the firings and things happened a couple of years ago, I wasn't a part of that, but it did affect me in that the people who would hire me and my colleagues and then distribute us among the various regionals and things like that were fired. So, we were all sort of left floating in the ether, if you will, trying to figure out what the next steps were for all of us in our career and trying to figure out how we could just not let this thing die, right? Because we love it so much. Like I'm a huge fan as much as I'm a part of the media team, and I want coverage of the sport because I want to watch it too.
Right.
So it has been a balancing act between my actual career in communications and doing the freelance stuff on the floor, sideline reporting, daily rap videos, things like that. There's no what I would love for it to be full time.
Right.
But, at the time, even if you consider there's 28 or 27 now sanctional events this year, like even if I did every single one of them, which wouldn't happen, I can't be gone every single weekend and traveling from one end of the globe to the other. But even if I could, like just 28 paychecks a year, we're getting there. We are getting there, closer to full time, but still probably not. All of us have side gigs. Anyone you see on the media team is trying to hustle and do other things. Hopefully, stay within the space. Doing podcasts is a great example, and I've been having a lot of fun with that recently too. But no, I still have the career on the side.
Yeah, right, and that makes sense. I mean, you have to pay the bills, but like you said, you have those side hustles and. It's what you would want to hopefully make full time one day, but it's just like you said, walking through those doors, taking it one step at a time. And so then, Niki, you said like your full time gig is working full time at an ad agency, but then on the side, like you said, you're doing podcasts and doing this technically contract work. So do you have your own business on the side as well that all of this falls under?
Yeah, I have I run my own little side hustle situation. I don't know what the legal term is, and maybe that's it. Yeah, I do, and I've been doing a lot of a lot of the work that I've learned recently in working in advertising. I've been doing on my own as well. So some small event marketing and some social media ad buying and things like that, because I do it full time. So I'd love to do it more within the CrossFit space since I know so much about it from the inside looking out. So I've been having a lot of fun with that. I'm like the queen of putting too much on my plate at once. And I look at my schedule and I'm like, all right, well, husband, I'll see you on Sunday.
Right.
But it's cool. We're all just trying to figure it out right now. There's still a lot up in the air with how the CrossFit media season goes. And we're finally, I think, settling into a pattern and a rhythm with this whole sanctional situation, but it could change again tomorrow. So just trying to figure out my place in all of that is still a little bit of a journey.
I gotcha. So you kind of are just rolling with the punches, going with the flow at the time. And so is then with this contract work that you're doing, like you said, learning more in social media, relying on now what you're learning through this ad agency that you work for, is CrossFit then your primary client, I guess? Or are you marketing yourself to, I guess, on a local level to CrossFit gyms? Or is it just kind of anybody seeking media advice? What kind of services do you offer? And who is your, I guess, typical client?
Yeah, so I think it goes in two ways. On the one hand, I'm me and my brand is me.
Right,
super exciting. But on the one hand, I'm just Niki, and I'm reaching out to these sanctionals and being like, hey, I've been a sideline reporter formerly for HQ, but for the last 6 or 7 years, I've done all these events. Would you like me at your event? In what capacity? Do you have a live stream? Can I do sideline? If I can't, then there's something to be said about I've been doing a lot of social media takeovers, lending a little bit of a personality and a behind the scenes look to Instagram stories throughout the event, shooting and editing daily videos about things going on at the event, about the recap on the elite division, or about cool storylines within the community, and highlighting what's special about those events in particular. So there's that aspect of sort of being on camera, working with the broadcast, doing that sort of media stuff. And then the other side of things is just I do have an expertise in media marketing communications, specifically in the digital space. So if there's an event or a brand or someone or something that is looking for help there, because we all are, it's such a gray area in terms of how do I get the word out about who I am, and how do I, do this weird self-serve digital ad buying platform. And I know about that stuff because that's how I work. So, it's just sort of, I've made connections with people over time that have been looking for help, and it's just kind of clicked. So I hope to expand that more. That's really fun for me. And when I'm in between events, I'd love to continue working within the CrossFit space, especially in a marketing or advertising sense, because that's what I know and love. That's been my career for the last 5 years, 6 years technically. So that's still being built. But I think to answer your question, it's sort of, there's two sides of it. There's the on-camera media sanctionals traveling Niki side.
Yeah.
And there's the, what is the background of my career in communications and marketing, and how can I use that to help brands within the space? Because, rising tide, blah, blah, blah.
Right, right. And so, I mean, like you said, you're still navigating it. You want to do it full time. You're starting to grow it and just kind of seeing where you can fill that need. And so then how do you decide what kind of content so you reach out to these different sanctional events and these different organizations saying, hey, where can I fill in? Where can I help you guys out? So how do you present it? Do you say I can do, I'll do sideline reporting, I'll do social media, I'll do a social media takeover? How do you decide maybe what is the best reach or best way to market yourself to these specific events? Is it just dependent upon what type it is, maybe what time of year it is? How do you decide what the best, I guess, media approach would be for that specific event?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can do and love to do as much work as possible. So I think it's usually up to the events, what they're capable of, what is in their budget, what their timing and capabilities are. And it's been cool because each sanctional event runs, independently of one another and also autonomously of HQ for the most part. So they're all super unique in how they want to present themselves, talk about themselves, incorporate their, unique events or unique surroundings or whatever. So it's been really cool working directly with the sanctionals directors or media directors or media teams to be able to formulate a plan that works best for that event. So, I present myself and all my capabilities and let them know I want to help out as much as possible. And then it's on them to help me figure out what they want, how they want to present themselves. And we kind of just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Niki, do you have a desire of where you want your personal brand, your personal business to grow to in the future?
I just want to keep doing the things I love.
Yeah.
I just want to keep being afforded the ability to travel the world and report on the floor at these sanctioned events and tell these athlete stories and be a part of, bringing CrossFit coverage to the masses is it's just the best. It's so great. It's so great. So I just want to keep doing what I love. And like I said, if I can fill in the gaps with more structure and content in the marketing side of things for CrossFit brands specifically, that would just be so ideal. But I mean, I really like my job at the agency. I work with a bunch of really cool brands and do a lot of great nonprofit work and a lot of work to benefit the state as well. So it's all good right now. I really can't complain. The workload is large, but I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you're in the midst of you're just hustling. And so you have, you said, all this work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Man. And so Niki, I mean, just kind of hearing you talk about CrossFit and how you kind of got to marry these two things that you love, CrossFit and then marketing and broadcasting. So being able to do all these different events. What was it initially about the world of CrossFit, the sport of CrossFit, that really piqued your interest and made you decide when you saw that post on Facebook from CrossFit HQ, man, I have to apply for this. I want to see what this is about. What about the sport of CrossFit really just attracted you?
It's funny, when we started, we really didn't know what we were getting ourselves into, right? Yeah. So I had tried CrossFit a little bit in college, but it just wasn't really conducive to my lifestyle. You heard I was just dancing all the time and I was in practice and I actually had to go to class and stuff. So it just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
But when we first started, we just didn't know. My husband and I just thought cool. It's just a new kind of gym. We're bored with our gym, so we'll try it out. And it so very positively impacted our lives. I saw a huge change in the way I looked, which was really important to me, and in what my body was physically capable of. And it changed everything. We looked good. We felt good. We were impressing ourselves with our physical capabilities. And I honestly started coaching because I was so impressed by what this program did for me that I wanted to spread the gospel of CrossFit. I want to coach on ramp. That's what I wanted to do. I only wanted to coach on ramp because I was literally if I can do this, anyone can do this. And if this works for me, it can work for anyone. And so that's really what it was my husband and I were just wow, this is really helping us live our lives to the fullest. We were living in Maine. I hiked Mount Katahdin, which was it's the tallest mountain in Maine. It's the end of the Appalachian Trail. And it was a life-changing experience. And had I not been able to get my fitness under wraps, I don't think I would ever been able to do that. So it was shit like that was happening where I was like, wow, my life is really changing because I'm pushing myself in the gym and I'm able to do these things and feel good about myself and feel good about the way I look and feel good about the things I can accomplish. And that got me hooked on the sport. So then I started coaching and fell in love with coaching and making a positive impact on other people's lives. I also coach. I forgot to add that to my list of work. That's still happening. I still coach a little bit here and there. So that's what it was. When I saw that post from HQ, I was like, damn, like those are all things I love. Like I love being on camera and I love CrossFit. So it was a no-brainer. I had to throw my name in the ring for that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense just having this complete life change because this sport entered your life. And I like how you reflect back on hiking Mount Katahdin and having that huge, I mean, it's a huge physical feat to do something like that, and having the recognition of, wow, I don't know if I would have been able to do this if I wasn't in shape, because CrossFit helped me get into that level of fitness. So it's cool to apply it to real life. I mean, because you can watch the games and be so inspired by these incredible athletes doing these ridiculous things. But on the basic level, it's fitness. And so the idea that you could climb a mountain, like that's a huge accomplishment. And so that's just, I like having that, that you related it to that. And so Niki, when you then applied and then you were able to, you got selected. And so you started working with CrossFit HQ as a reporter and doing all these different things with them. When you first got into this space, were you super familiar with all of the athletes involved? And if so, when you started to interview them and talk to them, was it a challenging transition for you to be kind of revering these big name athletes to then all of a sudden talking to them?
Yeah, totally. So we do a ton of research on the athletes ahead of time, and there were dedicated people on staff who would just like dig for stats and put together paperwork. And then we would do, and when I say we, I mean me and all the announcers and broadcasters and all the other sideline reporters as well. We would do just so much like net stalking and so much like social media stalking of like what people were posting and how they were training. And so we'd put together flashcards with notes. I mean, it was insane. But that process grew as well over the years. So like year one didn't have that so much, like barely had like a list of athletes going into the event. So I had to learn a lot on the fly. And you learn a lot in the quiet moments too, right? Like I would learn a lot in the 2 seconds that we had me and an athlete before the camera was turned on. So you kind of like start to pick up bits and pieces. But then as you get to know them, not only do the patterns of information become totally stuck in your mind, like I can tell you the things that I used to research and know about like Sam Briggs back in the day versus what I know about her now, like all that stuff sort of like stays lodged in there. So you really start to build a foundation of your knowledge base, but then you also become much more friendly and much more informal with the athletes themselves. So when I first started, like, I was completely nervous and blown away by like the superstarness of some people. But at the same time, CrossFit was still so new that had the benefit of like a lot of those people not being big names yet.
Right.
So like, everybody knew who Annie was. And the first time I talked to Annie, I was like, oh my God. Elizabeth Akinwale, I remember like I was the one person at games where I was like, I have to tell you, I'm like a huge fan of you. And I felt like such a nerd. But at the time, like a lot of those people were still making names for themselves. So I had the opportunity to become friendly with them and become really casual and formal with them before they sort of took off. And nowadays it's hard for me to sometimes remember like what a big deal they are, because to me, they're just them and they've been them for years. And I think that's really valuable to me, is really important to me. And I hold that close to my heart, that they can be normal with me and real with me, and that they see me as someone who is, not only a part of their success journey, because if they win an event or if they're doing really well, they get to talk to me, but also as a friend and a confidant and someone that they can trust in to tell their story to.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I mean, you being that trustworthy person and someone they can rely on, and they trust you to share their story in the best way, in that best light. And then too, I love that. I mean, I think like you said, it could be so easy to get swept up in these big name athletes and what they do on the floor and just how many followers they have, and they're just so known now. But at the base level, they are they're people, and they get their stories shared. And so just like you said, building that personal relationship with them over the past few years as they've grown, as they've developed their own brands and their own styles. It's just really cool to hear that. I mean, and that's because that's at the base level. People want their stories shared, and to have a trusting voice help them do that, like you as a sideline reporter. It's just a really cool thing to hear those relationships being built.
Yeah.
So Niki, I mean, you clearly accomplished so much, and I love hearing the hustle and the passion in your story. And then to date, and then knowing that you're going to accomplish so much more, you keep diving in, and you're going to make your personal brand and everything. It's going to be your full-time job, and it's just so cool to hear that. And so I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees: what do you want to be remembered for?
Wow, what a great! We just asked Jacob Hebner this on the podcast that we recorded before I got on the line with you.
Yeah,
and I remember thinking, wow, how the hell would I answer that question? I don't know. I don't have a great answer. I mean, I guess I just have always wanted to be. I used to want to be known for being the person to break a story. I thought that would be my legacy, right? I would get into news and I would uncover something that was really important or helpful or something. And that sort of has changed from that to being just reliable, or I don't know, almost being a point person for an interesting story or for information, being known as someone that can be trusted to tell a story and tell it well and tell it interestingly and tell it truthfully. It's just I guess the legacy part of it is the same, in that I want to be that point person, and I want people to remember me. She was always the one we could come to for that. She was always the one we could come to for the information. When I was looking for it, when I wanted to know what happened at the sanction, I wanted to know what happened with this athlete. I instantly, I checked her page, or I went to her feed, or whatever it is. I don't know. In the modern era, it's probably tapped into her brain. I don't know what it'll be someday, but so that focus has always been the same, but it's really changed from this sort of hard-hitting, old school view of how we receive and disseminate information, to more of a softened, maybe it's not the finger pointy first to the story kind of thing that's important. Maybe it's this softer, more human side of life, where we've got stories to tell and we've got stories to hear, and that's really important in connecting us with one another and learning about how we act, sure, as athletes, but also how we are as humans and people. And we're missing a lot of that connection nowadays, especially in the social media era, and people don't even know how to talk to each other anymore. The amount of times I've heard people be like, "Don't call my texting device." All right. So we're really missing that human connection in a lot of aspects in life, and I want to be known for being able to bring that back, in a sense, even if it's on a digital medium, or even if it's on your phone. At least we're people talking to people, and we're people telling people stories, and that's important to me.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance, if only you keep moving forward.